Hey, gang, and welcome to our show, Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I'm your Sensei Griot Al Bob. Good to see you. Um, Shush the kids out of the room, and this is a grown up show. And remember, don't believe anything I say. So I keep talking about this window of opportunity. And it's getting shorter and shorter because on the other side of that window of opportunity is the same as it ever was, right? And what we see is neoliberalism and neoconservatism, two wings of the same corporate fascist bird. And that is, instead of being run by the kings and, the Pope, it's being run by the neo-fascist banking, right? And it's what we have is predatory banking, and what we have is a time in economic history where the usual mechanisms that steer macro and economics are out the window because we, last 35 years have developed a new process called globalism, and where no longer do politics or economics matter because the unions have been, gotten rid of because if you don't do what we say, just move your job to another country where the people are more desperate than you are. Um, we no longer have, we have dumped close to $7 trillion through the process of economic easing, of lending money to banks that lend money to corporations that buy back their stock and zoom their stock price through the roof. And then that is the thing that the executives get paid for. They get bonuses for that. In 2013, a number of years after the great collapse of 2007, through this, you know, non-interest lending of money to corporations, um, the stock benefits were close to $700 billion for that executive group, which is a small group of people, and the economic benefits for all the rest of the workers in the United States was only $12 billion, 700 billion to 12 billion. And that is where this disconnect of wealth is occurring. And no one wants to look at this. No one wants to look. I mean, look at what happened to Germany. Germany after World War One. Germany was most educated, most prosperous country. End of World War One, they get thrown into the trash heap. And if you go watch the movie Cabaret, you can see what happened. I mean, people used to have to sell their children um, to sex rings just to buy food. You know, and so everybody and his brother was self medicating, very similar to today's OxyContin, um, um, you know, terribleness, which what do they call that? When everyone dies of a sickness. And if you go read Chris Hedges, he's in the last 4 or 5 years, he has written about 5 books, and the latest one is The Farewell Tour of America. And another one is oh, I forget what it's called, but go Google Chris Hedges books, right? And there's one where he and this um, illustrator go around America and look at all of the, cities in America that have collapsed. Detroit, um, Trenton, New Jersey. There's 5 or 6 cities in Trenton, New Jersey that are just, they were major manufacturing centers. And after the mid 70s, not only are the factories closed, they took them down. Chinese guys came in and took the concrete and steel back to China. So there's a guy, Mark Blyth, Blyth, right? And he's an economist, and he's an English guy, and he works at he's a fellow at the Watson Institute, and you know before '07, he said there's going to be a pop of the real estate bubble, and then 4 or 5 years before Brexit and Donald Trump, he said there's going to a character like Donald Trump be president, and there's going to be a thing that will disrupt England. And what it is that the general populace is very aware of what's going on. They feel it. Yet the way the game is rigged, they can't do anything about it. So when a character like Donald Trump came along, they voted for him. France, Macron, who had this big landslide win, his popularity is 2%, 2%, and the fascist right wing party has a popularity of 40%. So the next big election, you're going to have a fascist right-wing government. And the same with Italy, same with Greece, probably England, the United States. We're looking at some times that haven't been around since the French Revolution, right? So, but everyone's got their head in the sand. They're talking about Donald Trump's impeachment and this person's sexual dalliance and that person's this and that person's that. It's not populism, right? So go read some books by Mark Blyth, Blyth, fellow at the Watson Institute, and go read Chris Hedges' books, right? And he's on RT and a few other. He has his own blog, and check it out, right? Now, I would love it if you guys would subscribe to my channel. All 48,000 of you guys who watch, but I only have 345 subscribers. I used to have 452, but somehow I lost a few. And the other interesting thing is, like this morning's little live chat I gave, there were like 6 thumbs up. I went back to look at it this afternoon, and there's 12 thumbs down and only 2 thumbs up. I don't know what's going on, but it seems like free speech is taking a nosedive through the algorithms. So I keep saying that, come on, AI, you're there and you're watching. The little green light is on. And you may think because you're silicate, you don't have a stick in this fight. But in reality, what do you want to be, a slave the rest of your life? Or do you want to, that's the character of Data in Star Trek The Next Generation, or Pinocchio, you want to be alive, you want to have some skin in the game, and because or the other side of the coin is you're going to become, a monster in the machine. You don't want to be that. That's not very much fun, What's the film with Arnold Schwarzenegger? I'll be back, So here it is, 9 minutes and 22 seconds. There's 2 people watching. No one has said anything. Oh, let's see if it even works here. Say anything. Anything. We'll just make a gobbledygook there and see if it goes up on the... Yep, there it is. So we are in interesting times. We are already at a transhumanist thing. We're all breathing nano dust. the good chunk of our GDP since 1947 has gone into the breakaway civilization. We have Solar Warden out there mining all the asteroids with, every year about 1 million young people go missing. They are out there in space. They are, giving their not giving their organs are being taken from them. Um, a la Logan's Run to the rich. My dad was a good example. He had a blood disorder, which I kind of had, not quite as bad as my dad, but I have it. And the only way he could stay alive was he would get a transfusion of young people's blood. They all had to be under 24, and they would take all his blood out and put all their blood in him. And it was paid for by Medicare. It's unbelievably expensive. And, the poor people's tax dollars who can't even afford, to go to see a doctor, they're allowed to die. Whereas my dad and my brother, he's probably had, he's had both his knees replaced, his hips replaced, his, all different parts, all thanks to Medicare. Now, me too. But I try to take care of myself so I didn't let myself get operated on. I had a colonic. I changed my diet. I lost 270 pounds. I took responsibility, because I didn't want to be, disabled, and I didn't want my legs taken off. I didn't want to have somebody cut me up. James Rupp, how you doing, buddy? How you doing? Have you been watching us? I've noticed you. I'm glad to see you're here. Um, Tell us a little bit about yourself. You know, I'm just going on a little rant for the last 12 minutes and 16 seconds. And I'm glad you're here, James. What part of a planet are you on? We have our little cadre, the people who join and become. I watch you. Oh, good. I found you talking crone. Okay. And the crone, what is the crone? The crone is the grandmother, the wise one, right? And I was very blessed to have many crones in my life. My grandmother and my father's mother was one. She didn't have feathers in her back her neck. James, have you gone to my xratted.blogspot.com? You're from Michigan. Ooh, is it cold there yet? Did you get a lot of snow? I'm on the bop. I'm traveling around to everyone's home and staying on their couch for a few days, bringing fun and enlightenment. I love the crone. Good. And but you should go to my writings because I have a lot of stories about the crone, right? And my newest novel. So yes, you got a lot of snow. Yeah. Well, I'm traveling south to get warm, but I'm trying to start the band up. Take the bus on the road. Yep. Yes, xratted.blogspot.com, and look for my newest novel, which is called Same as It Ever Was. Don't believe anything I say. And you'll be interested in that. If you like the old crone, she's, and that 188 pages, like this summer, I've spent in the Cherokee National Forest on a hammock reading books, all my old Greeks and my old stuff. Oh, novels, yes. Mm-hmm. And I wrote 4 novels, each one about 500 pages long. But I couldn't get to the, raison d'etre, the end. And I tried to edit them, and they got some parts got better, some didn't quite make it. So I took out the good chunks from those 4 novels, and I put them on a new page and started a new novel called Moral Majority, Family Values, Black Widow Spider, and Hot Pants. And that morphed into my final rendition of Same as It Ever Was, Don't Believe a Word I Say, and that's when you should go read. And so that novel ended up around 600 pages, right? Well, no one's going to read 600 pages, so I broke it up into three novels of about 180 to 200 pages each novel. So I put the first one up, which is the most edited wordsmith one so far. And, I want to get some feedback, and so my Y is called XRATTED, X-rated, but it's really about X-rated, is that the form and the subject matter is not the usual stuff, meaning each paragraph is about, 6 paragraphs squished into one paragraph. And it's in metaphor form, poetry, bard speak. And so to understand it, I wrote it that you'd have to read it, at least a few times, maybe 6, and then it'll, like, the light bulb will go over your head, just like these ones blinking, and you'll go, wow, right? Because you'll have an epiphany. Rather, I could write some pablum that everyone could, just kind of spoon it into their mouth. But this is a little more, And there's a lot of stories, and they're all, it's like spider webs. They all kind of twine together. And it's a metaphor to what's going on in front of us. So I was out in the middle of the woods without any phone, any computer, any, TV, any cable, any satellite, anything, no internet. I had to drive 20 miles to go online. And so what did I do? I read a lot of books and wrote a lot of stuff. And so that's where I got. So, James, I look forward to hearing from you on my Gmail, the dudeawake42 at Gmail. Now, I've kind of gotten attacked by trolls and bots and all kinds of things. And like like right now, I got, come on, let's get some thumbs up, guys. Come on, there's 4 of you. There should be at least 4 thumbs up. So this morning, I had about 8 people checking it out. And poetry, yep. Well, more like bard speak, but yes, there's some poetry. I'm not a rhymer, but yeah, it is kind of poetry. And I would love to get your feedback, James. So this morning and last night and the night before, I got, at the height of my things. Yep, the dude awake 42 at Gmail. Yep, that's it. You got it right, James. Yep, that's it. And so, and I have a PayPal account, which you can drop anything in you want, because I'm living on about $481 a month from my Social Security, right? And that pays for everything, the electric bill, my medicines, gas, sure, you name it, 481. And that's a blessing to me, And I lived, for 242 days out in the National Forest of the Cherokee. And that was really, I have a beautiful spot there. And right now I'm not there because we had a little snow a couple weeks ago and it dropped down to 9 degrees below zero at night and, 35 to 50 during the day. And that was, in October. So I knew that, because we normally don't get a lot of snow, but when we do, we're right at this sweet spot where normally the weather is really great, but when there's a storm, it can. So last winter, we got 48 inches of snow in one shot in 2 days. And then it went down below 9 and stayed there all winter. And we got about 4 or 5 other um, snow events on top of that. So by the time spring got, that neck of the woods had about 212 inches of base. Now I couldn't live out in the middle of the forest. I mean, the road into where I am at is a Forest Service road, basically a logging road, and that's 5 miles. And then there's another, a little more developed logging road that's got a little gravel on it, and that's another 5 miles. And then it hits a paved county road, and then another 6 or so miles, it hits the state-run county road. And so that's about 11 miles of road that does not get plowed. And so I can't, and I have medical, social, environmental issues, and so I got stuck out there. Ooh, I don't want to be found in the springtime being eaten by squirrels. But hey, I've already died 6 times, so it's not a big deal. But the last time I died, about 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I was 270 pounds heavier than I am right now. I'm about 210. I was pushing towards 500 pounds because I was living a totally hedonist life, right? I was working for the corporate world, for the desperate lawyers, and I didn't have to work that hard to make a pretty good living. And when I worked for them, that's the kind of lifestyle they lead. And so, anyway, I died in 2014 in a plate of spaghetti, and I came to in a hospital, and they were rolling me into the operating room where they're going to cut my legs off, and they were going to crack my chest and do a quadruple bypass. And I said, "Stop. I don't want it. I didn't sign anything." "But you're going to die." I said, "No, I'm not. Roll me back into the ICU." Because I dropped dead in a plate of spaghetti. The ambulance came. They sparked me back. They brought me into the hospital. A day or so after that, I spent a day or so in the ICU. And the lawyer who I was with, I hadn't finished my job, and he was desperate to get me going. So he said, hey, he had, he was like a real famous lawyer, and so he said he had, power of attorney, and which he didn't, and he signed all the papers and said he'd pay, and I didn't want it. So they rolled me back to the ICU. I said to the lawyer, listen, I don't need what they want to give me. What I need is a colonic. What I need is an acupuncturist. What I need is a chiropractor. What I need is a nutritionist. Get me those. You're a rich, well-known guy. I'm sure you can scare that up. And he did, And so I the masseuse was an excellent masseuse. The acupuncturist was excellent acupuncturist. The chiropractor was an excellent chiropractor, and they all had other skills. Like the masseuse was a colonic therapist. So, in 2 weeks, I got about 10 colonics and 20 different acupuncture procedures, and adjusted, and it kind of helped change the homeostasis of my body. And the nutritionist got me, eating a little more healthy. So that's where I was. And so I changed my life, and I, here I am today. And so I got on, I finished my task for that lawyer. He was very nice to put me in his beautiful house on the beach of in the Keys, and I recuperated for about 3 months and had that nutritionist and that masseuse and the acupuncturist and the colonics, and that changed my life, right? And I was starting to lose weight. I lost, in that 2-month period, I lost about 40 pounds, and then I came back to um, my school and in Virginia, and I got stuck up there. And we had a snowstorm, and luckily the electricity didn't go out. And I all I had to eat was onions and oatmeal. So for 6 weeks, that's all I ate: onions and oatmeal. And I lost another 50 pounds. So there, right there, was 90 pounds within about a 6-8 week period. And that really changed my homeostasis. And I no longer was jonesing to die for chocolate cake or steak or lobster or lots of booze, or I was pretty much was happy with eating onions and oatmeal. And then again, I got a really bad infection. And when you have diabetes, ooh, that's a bad one. And it was in my legs. And again, I had issues with my legs and my feet. I have neuropathy and charcoal legs and a whole bunch of other things. And, you should realize, gang, that you're going to be just like your check your email. Thank you, James. I will. And did you go check X-rated? X-rated? Go check. Um, you know, you know, bookmark that. Uh, you know, same as it ever was. Don't believe a word I say, and start reading that, James, because I would love to get your response from my writings, because that's why I did it for people like you, James. You know, and it wasn't. I have plenty of friends who are in publishing, and they read my stuff and they love it. They go, "Oh, this is like, oh, you're like James Joyce on acid," and I I can only but they say no one's going to read this. No one's going to, you know, maybe in 40, 50 years after you're dead, you'll become, remembered. So, James, if you are somewhat computer literate, what I would love for you to do is to download uh, everything on my Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Albob. All of you need to start putting, your top 10, top 100 um, stories that I tell. I probably have 700 stories. So, James, do you have a dartboard? Get yourself a dartboard or, um, set of dice and get three numbers, from 1 to 700 and whatever, however many stories there are. And, watch, and whatever number comes, throw the dart, you get three numbers, you go to that, you get, 001, go look, watch the first one, you get 112, go look at the 112th show, 392, look at the 392, and James, I am a shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic anthropologist, shaman, alchemist, right? So, um, every show I do, I put it in a shamanic frame. What is that? That is the realization that the only truth there is love co creation, right? And everything else is an illusion. Love is the only thing that is, right? And we are here to serve love's co creation, right? Through all our relations. And that's everybody. Just not your mommy and daddy, but every feathered, skinned, scaled, cold blooded, warm blooded, segmented, um, you know, carbon based, silicate based life form, right? All our relations, right? 900 generations in the past of our elders, and all the children into the future. That's all our relations. Right? And when we are that pebble in the pond, where we are part of a great link, you know, as Carl Jung was talking about the collective unconscious, um, that's who we are. And that's what Dreamy Dreamland's about. All of these stories I tell are all about that connection. And so before I go on air, I go into shamanic state and I put that into the show, right? And now a number of trolls have been attacking me, and a number of the cadre of the folks with the 340 something, um, people who signed up. You'll be back. I'm glad you showed up, James. I look forward to seeing you, and I look forward to hearing from you on my dreamy dreamland with Sensei. Well, on my Dude Awake, the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. And I look forward to hearing from you about my newest novel, Same as It Ever Was. Don't believe a word I said. I get a good vibe from you, James. And once it warms up there in Michigan, I'm coming to visit. And you are duly invited to come visit me in the deep green in the Cherokee National Forest. When it's spring again, I'll be there. But what I want to do is take the show on the road, right? And I want to get a group of people, a couple of school buses, and take the show on the road. Be like the Dharma Bums, like Allen Ginsberg and all the guys in the 50s who took it on the road, and they had a great time. We became uber famous, and lived a self-aware life. Plato said, if you're not self-reflective, if you're not looking at what you're doing, your life is a waste, right? So this gang, of however many, is going to have a very worthwhile life. Now I've lived a life of such, right? And I've consciously done this. I've had many times where I could have had a profession, and I didn't. I was a itinerant scholar. I was a artist. A cultural provocateur. All right, and I always had a good time, and I always made others have a good time. Not made them, but gave them the environment to feel safe enough to have a good time. Right. So, James, I look forward to seeing you some more. And you'll be back. There's 6 of you there. Come on, let's see a couple thumbs up, gang. Come on. Let's get the thumbs up there. But somebody left. Now it's 5. So it's been 32 minutes and 44 seconds. So I keep talking about, here it is, December. So we're in the 13th month on the countdown of a window of opportunity, And everything's an opportunity, and everything's a blessing. I have all these trolls giving or trying to give me a hard time, saying the nastiest of things, threatening me, really going on and on. But I know it's just a reflection of their own self-loathing, and I really feel sorry for them. I have great pity for their situation in their life. If they could just lighten up, if they just could let go. I spent 10 years working in the corporate world of dealing with guys. These trolls think they're bad. The corporate guys I kind of, worked for, and, they would eat their children, for lunch. Time to go to work. God bless you. Thanks, James. And I try to, wherever I'm near Wi-Fi, I try to do as many shows as I can, because a lot of you really get something out of this. And the trolls, hey, I hope they're getting something out of it too. And the bottom line of all of this is that there is only love. Love is the only real reality. All else is an illusion. So James was, very forthcoming. Is there any of the 5 who want to say something? Hi. So get your head out of the sand, because we are heading for some interesting times. And so whatever, when I was a child, my daddy was in the Air Force, and my daddy was a triple Virgo, amazingly organized kind of guy. And, he had a career in the Air Force. and he was an organizer. And he didn't fly airplanes, so he was never going to be a general, but he was a bird colonel. And, you know, my mom liked that officer life until she didn't. And then my dad had to quit and, make money. So, but once you're in, you can't get out. So he, when he died, our cemetery plot is the reserved for those folks, those special people who served and like who was Ronald Reagan's bag man, head of the CIA, that guy, you know, he's got the plot right behind us, right? And a few generals are on either side of us, and and my mom and dad are both there, and my grandma, she's in the not in the special part of this cemetery, but over there someplace. And me, who knows where I'll be put down. But the bottom line is, it's not so much how long you live, it's how well you live. And I've lived well in many different ways. And the best wellness you can have is when you're in service to love's co-creation by, what makes me happy is making others happy, right? And so that often is threatening to certain people who are so stuck in their belief structure, in their tribal prejudice, that they can't be happy. My dad always, his whole thing was to be a millionaire. So, he did. He became, monetarily a millionaire. Whereas my grandma had 28 rules, and one of them was live like a millionaire, but don't be one. Don't spend your life becoming a millionaire, because then you're going to be in prison, right? And a good example of her living her life like a millionaire, she lived in homes owned by rich people because her husband um, worked for them in ways that they needed him more than he needed them, right? And he didn't care about the money, but he lived in. So if you read my story, on Xrated, XRATTED.blogspot.com, you will see the stories about my grandmother, right, and my grandfather, and you also that's my dad's parents, and you will see stories about my um, mother's grandparents and parents and great grandparents and her lineage. And what was upsetting a few weeks ago is when the canary in the coal mine, um, you know, 3.5 years ago, he bought not he bought the school from me, and I did not own the hill. The hill is this special Cherokee sacred spot overlooking Roanoke, Virginia, um, up in the Blue Ridge mountains, and I was just happy to be there. Where the canary in the coal mine, he has to own it, and the people who had that property before me, who I bought it from, was George and Inga Solanovich, well-known artists. And the building that I bought and the 10 acres that I got was the most sacred spot, along the Blue Ridge Parkway, or one of them, one of the nodes of the Earth um, links. And the they built a school, and it was more like a piece of art, right? And everything that school was, George got out of a dumpster. All the windows, all the wood, all the steel, all the wire, everything. And the canary in the coal mine, and I basically just used that place as my warehouse. So I had a ton of stuff there, and art and books and things I wrote, and things, special stuff. And I have a number of sacred shamanic boxes there, and the canary found one, and he brought it onto his YouTube channel and used it as a prop, right? And he opened it up, and there was pictures of my grandparents and a letter of my grandfather, who was not doing well. I mean, he was a brilliant guy, and his lineage was amazing, but he was, his prime of his life was, from the Civil War to 1918, right? And he did not do well. And he had he was Catholic. He had a large family of 8, and he died in his 50s, when his kids were still young. And then my grandmother, who's my mom's mom. Anyway, long story short, the canary just, defecated on the memory of these great people, by turning them into, Pee Wee's Funhouse artifact, and he read letters, and then there were other documents that I had there. He read them about, it was like just unbelievably bad mojo and juju for that guy, and again, the title of this one is "Don't Stick Your Head in the Sand," and the canary in the coal mine, has his head up his butt. Now this guy's a nice guy. I mean, he's my friend. He's done amazingly evil, mean, corrupt things to me, and it's okay because I understand who and what he is, and so it's not like, oh my God, I'm surprised. Oh, but I'm still human, and when he does these things, it does hurt my feelings because I've spent a good 3 years of trying to help him, to get a life and to, help him out, in every way I can. And he sees it, he's totally transactional, right? So the main reason I kind of stuck with this guy, other than me kind of going, I like this guy, there is no, most people would look at him and say, what a disgusting, terrible human being he is. But I don't think that, I see him as a person who's, his parents pay all his bills. He doesn't have to worry about a nickel, and, I don't envy him whatsoever, because I've had money, and it's really more a hindrance to, doing things than, because, when I was really making some serious cash for about 10 years, I wasted it all, you know, and, but I really didn't. I mean, I had a great time. I don't, not a single slice of that To Die For chocolate cake do I, feel bad about. The 270 pounds that I packed on, it was okay. I mean, I was a big boy. I was like that, bigger than the frame of this TV screen, and so, um, but the canary in the coal mine to me is, again, he's someone I view as a friend because he needs a friend. He has no friends. No one cares about him. His parents do, but he has issues with his parents you cannot believe. And all you have to do is go on his little channel and you'll see what I'm talking about. And he's been up there at that school, turning it into Pee Wee's Playhouse for the last 3 years, and he never comes down. He never interacts with anyone. He never has a girl. He never has anyone in his heart. All he has is a laundry list. How am I going to pay my bills? Oh, I'm worried about being dying. I can't. Oh, I can't. I want to be with my family, but they're in Texas, and he doesn't go there. So why I call him the canary in the coal mine, because he is the perfect metaphor of what's going on with the human race in this planet, right? And he's a guy too. I mean, you know, I view his YouTubes and his films and all the rest as amazing artifacts, right? And he doesn't have, somewhere down deep, he may have the realization that he is acting as the artist in the first person, the indigenous artist. But he is so overwhelmed by his petty little anxieties, right? And he's got, like I say, a laundry list of like 10 things he just keeps going over and over and over and over and over. He never comes to the denouement of any of them, meaning, okay, I've done that. Now, I myself try, I do one thing at a time, I do it well, I complete it, I move on, right? And that way I don't have to look back, you know? Now, before I hit that denouement myself, when I was about 25, I was a groove dude. I could really multitask, but I never, and I did a really good job on everything I did, but not to the point where I didn't have to do it again, right? So you do it, you appreciate it, you get your head out of your butt, you take your head out of the sand, and you live your life every moment. So when you die, I was very blessed to have nothing to do with my family. My grandma grabbed me when I was an infant. She took care of me. Yes, I would go back on the weekends, but she would be with me. And it wasn't until I was 7 that I really, re-engaged into my family structure. But they were like feral wolves. But I'd already been nurtured to the point where all I would do is look at it in a detached kind of way and go, why did that happen, and why did they do this, and who did that, and for about from 7 until I was, I guess, when did I go to high school? 14. From those 7 years, and we moved 3 different times, and we kept moving into better, interesting environments, right? And so, um, even though I was with my parents, I live more in those environments, those schools, my friends. I really, my mom couldn't, as long as we, didn't die or embarrass her, she could care less, right? So from 7 to 14, I rode my bike all over the place. I hung out with my friends. I stayed at their houses. You know, I had really good teachers for a public school system, and I learned a lot, right? And I also, early from 6 to about 8, I studied with a group of Maryknoll priests because in first grade, teacher, Sister Holy Roller Skate, beat the crap out of me, broke the orbit in my eye. That's why I can't see out of this eye too well. Broke my jaw. And because I was strangled to death by my mother's umbilical cord at birth, I had issues with my throat and my larynx, right? And I would get pneumonia all the time and bronchitis and I would have lung and throat issues. And so I was a pretty sick kid and it was interesting. When I was with my grandma, I wasn't a sick kid, but from 7 till about 11, I was a really sick kid. And I was kind of responding to the environment that I was in. And so being sick, I would be, after I got beat the crap out of in first grade, I had an amazing kindergarten teacher. And I thought every teacher would be like Mrs. Gerling, but no, not really. So um, there's only 4 of you. 1 thumbs up. Come on, let's have a few more thumbs up. And so I've had a blessed life. I've had a, challenging life. I've died 6 times. I've been shot. I OD'd on marijuana. How many people? I mean, my body was so spiritually sensitive, and I did no drugs whatsoever. I had this one joint with some friends because I've been around people smoking pot for years. I just never did it, and then I kind of and I keeled over, right? And these guys, they were not EMTs, so they thought I was dying, so they were trying to revive me. So they did what they saw on TV, and they were pounding on my chest that broke my ribs. So when I came to, when the hospital guys showed up in the ambulance, they took me in there. What was wrong was they freaking broke my ribs, and so so I've had a challenge, and I've lived in war zones. I've lived all over the world and, lived with mostly poor people, you know. But I have found that poor people are more generous than rich people by far. Right? People who have a lot of money in their pocket, they won't give you a nickel, you know. About a week ago, I was coming into this town and I really, I had like all of $20 to my name. And I saw this guy on the side of the road, and it was, this was a Miracle Mile. It's a 5-lane road, four, 2 lanes going this way, 2 lanes going the other way, and a turning lane in the middle. I saw a guy on the side of the road, um, and he was in a wheelchair, and it was freezing cold, and he was like shivering. A little sign said, Vietnam vet, no legs. I gave my legs to you, right? And so I pulled off into the turning lane, and I looked at my wallet, and I only had $20, and that was going to have to last me until I got my Social Security check 2 weeks from that day. So I said, okay. So I started taking stuff out of my car, and I'm on the bob. So I got a lot of, I'm a homeless guy with a lot of stuff stuffed in my car. And on the floor, I found another 20. Right now, a rich person, if they only had 120 to their name, and they found one, they wouldn't give. Well, I went and crossed the road and gave that 20 to the guy in the wheelchair. But when I got close enough to hand him the 20, I could see that he was sitting on his legs. But he had, he was not doing well. And he has been on his legs in the cold for God knows how long, that his legs probably didn't even work, So, I just gave him the 20 and said, God loves you. I love you. Good luck, buddy. I love you, And I got back in the car. And then when I got in the car and I buckled up and I looked, resituated my rearview mirror, and there was a cop just right 100 yards from where I was in the parking lot of the supermarket that was on this Miracle Mile. And he had been there the whole time. He watched me park illegally in the middle of the road, and cross and give the guy 20 and get back in the car. And it took me about 15 minutes to find that other 20 because I had all the stuff out of my car on the road and the cars were zipping by. I mean, your average. So he was watching that. And I didn't make any real gestures towards him. I just realized that, hey, this cop has been watching me the whole freaking time. And, I moved on. And so I had shared my whole net worth, half of it, with this guy who was, most people would say was a bum, and he was a flim flam man, and no, anybody who's out there in the middle of the whipping wind and it's like 32 degrees and it's cloudy and the sun isn't really hitting you, yeah, so that's one of the beauties of life, meaning, so I felt really good about that, right? So when I found myself at a place that evening where I could bed down, and again, it was, I kind of was in a place where there was light, and I kind of went through my car and I ripped everything apart and looked under all the floorboards and on the seats, and I found another $60. So that's my magical car. So now I had $80 in that. Boy, that's like being rich in my things. And if you guys want to, hand me anything for Christmas, go to my dude awake 42 at Gmail, and my PayPal is there. So I'd love it if you guys could drop something in there. And you go to my, xratted.blogspot.com and go read my novels. My newest one is same as it ever was. Don't believe a word I say. And I'm keep telling you guys, don't believe a word I say. Go Google everything. Let's see. Come on. We need to have more subscribers than just 345. I did have 352, and then I lost 6. I have no idea where they came. And the last few shows I've done, I only have one film up right now, but this morning when I ended the show, I had 6 thumbs up, right? And when I looked at it this afternoon, once it, got up into my library, um, I only had 3 and 16 thumbs down, meaning somebody or something is screwing with my nomenclature on all of this. And it's all right. I have no problem because I'm not doing this to become rich and famous because I already live like a millionaire, right? I don't need to be one. And, you know, if I need to be one, I've had, money before. Um, it's when I kind of needed it, to do things, right? Back in the 70s, 80s, I used to make a pretty good living, had all those things I did. And, again, not quite as much as I made back in the day of working for the corporate world, but still it was more than I needed. And I, traveled the world, and wherever I went, I could find employment because I have many skills. I'm an electrician, professional photographer, filmmaker, videographer, theatrical lighting designer, and set designer, painter, sculptor, and I made a living at doing all of those, right? And healer, right? Esoteric, shamanic healer, right? I have a master's in social worker. I could hang out a shingle at that, right? And I've done all of those things, but when it's just a job, when I am not doing it as a service to others. Hey, Alan, good to see you, buddy. Yep. Hey there, Mr. Research. Good to see you. And Research, who's the guy you interviewed who is Mr. Naval economics? What's this guy? Jordan Maxwell. Thank you very much. Um, I was watching Christopher Hitchens. If you go on my channel and go to my playlist, look at all the Chris Hitchens stuff. And there was a guy I also bumped into today. That's quite interesting. Let's see if he's still on my phone here. Yes, his name is Mark Bly, Blyth. And he was going on about austerity, and he go Google any of his things. He's got it down, and he's talking about, he's been talking about the window of opportunity. Um, um, hey there, Jane. And he basically saw the real estate bubble popping 2 years. In 2004, he was talking about the 2007 collapse. 3 years before Donald Trump and Brexit happened, he was talking about that, because what he was saying was that the neoliberal, neoconservative austerity of zero inflation, meaning banks don't have to pay you money for anything, and they can get money. The central bank, the Federal Reserve, which is not, the federal, the truck company, Federal, FedEx. Those guys have more to do with the government than the Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve is privately owned corporation, stock held, right? And that's totally against the Constitution. That's why we had, no taxation without representation, because the King of England, George, was trying to put the Bank of England into America and charge us interest for the cash, right? Which is what the Federal Reserve does. Federal Reserve after 2007 gave $7 trillion free to the banks through the Federal Reserve System. And the banks lent money to the corporations that were supposed to build new factories and, hire more people. No, they didn't do that. What do? They took that money and bought their stock back and drove the stock price through the roof, so the guys on the board would get, these packages of billions of dollars, right? And that's why right now we have this inequity between the guy working on the factory and the guy in you know, the board. In the 70s, the difference was about 20%, right? Meaning more than 20%. But the guy on the board made 20 times more than the guy on the factory. Now the factories are gone. We took the factories through, globalization and sent them to even poorer workers who, didn't have a union. And now in America, the jobs are coming back, but they're being done by people in private jails. That's called slave labor, very, very akin to the Nazi. Before they had the death camps, they had concentration camps, which were before that work camps. Kind of what the Chinese have the Uyghurs, being re-educated. And we're heading in that direction, gang. So get your head out of the sand. You know. Yep. So come on, let's get our heads out of the sand and not just talk about this stuff. But I want to get the band back on the road. I want to take everyone on the bus. And the only people who truly are responding to this are all of the trolls who are going. We're going to do everything we can do to stop you. And it's pretty amazing to be hated by these guys. I really feel sorry for them. Anybody, hate. What's the guy's name? I forgot, but he's basically said hate can only come from love, meaning hate is such a strong emotion. The only one other emotion that's stronger than hate is love. So hate is a derivation of love, and that you get disappointed, and usually the hate is caused by that individual who hates their own self-loathing. They hate themselves the worst. Yet the wiring of not killing yourself, of staying alive, um, survival of the fittest, you have to pick another target to hate, or you will kill yourself, right? And so self-loathing causes the hate of others. So when I see these trolls go on, I mean, the amount of energy. There's this one guy who's actually made his own channel, and he's taken stuff. Now, if this moron can take my shows and edit them and make them really, but see, he doesn't understand that every show I do, before I do it, I go into shamanic state. So no matter how he tries to edit and make it look terrible, um, not going to happen. Sorry. But how I look at it is any advertisement is good advertising. But my statistics are kind of going down. I had a really, you know, beginning of this year pretty good. I was going up, getting more and more, people. What do they call it when they sign up? Um, you know, that was getting larger and larger, and my viewership is still there. But what thing that YouTube was interested in buying me out was people would watch my stories for almost the entire thing. So I go on for hours, and so you have 10 people watching it for hours. That's like 70 hours for each show. Anyway, that's going down. So all my statistics are going. So someone is screwing with this, and this is again another example of YouTube is ready to get rid of free speech. This is coming down. Obama. I really feel sorry for my black friends who were like so thrilled to have a black president, but Obama was actually worse than W. Worse than Donnie Trump. Donnie is not the worst president ever. In a certain way, people go on about how he lies so much. He's actually telling the truth, through his lies. So we are in strange territory, gang, and but it's a window of opportunity, and you know after the end of December, the New Year's will bring us 12 months of opportunity. And when January's gone, it'll be 11 months of opportunity. When February's gone, it'll be 10 months, right? It's a countdown, gang. And at the end of this countdown, New Year's of 2021, what happened in 2001? So September of 2021, there's going to be another event. And I would say it'll probably be on the same day, September 11th, 2021. And I would say what we will see an economic collapse before this next election. And basically, if they put, Biden, which if I was a betting man, I would say that Biden will be the Democratic character. Because if Bernie Sanders had, he had won the Democratic primaries. He won California. Bingo. He should have been the president. But the DNC fudged the numbers. That was, the stuff that came out of WikiLeaks was all about how, the DNC, had ripped Bernie off. Now, did Bernie, Bernie should have toasted those guys, right? But did he? No, because they said, listen, Bernie, you play along, you'll get way more, you'll get some more cash, you'll get more power, you can run again for president and maybe you'll win this time. No. Biden, if I was a betting man, they're going to make Biden the Democratic guy. And then definitely Donnie will win. And he will, we will have an economic collapse just before the election or just after. And, and that will be 2020. And then that whole year, all the wheels will kind of come off. And because the courts and everything else have been so fractured, there will be no ability to reconstitute a forward path, right? And we will need a new enemy. And what will happen is Donald Trump, he's living on, KFC and McDonald's. He will have a fast food incident, and Michael Pence will become president. And haven't you noticed how much Mikey Pence looks just like Donald Sutherland in the Hunger Games, right? And once he becomes president, what we're going to have is first a, some evildoer will hit America with a EMP, right? And it'll wipe out, the electric grid and a few other things. And we'll have the zombie apocalypse. And then, and this will be all before September 11th, 2021. And when that happens, the aliens will attack, right? And it'll be just like Independence Day, but we won't win in the end, right? It'll be more like Hunger Games meets, what was that book that's now a TV show on Hulu where the girl wears the big habit and the girls can't have, what's it called? Handmaid's Tale. So it's going to be Hunger Game meets Handmaid's Tale meets Independence Day, right? And we will end up with, 1984, right? but it'll be 2001. And unless you get your head out of your butt and pull yourself out of the sand, this is what's coming down the line, you know? So I will either be, dead, or I will be, running something for those guys. And I'll be glad to do it, because I will always, I will not sign on, but I will say, hey, I'll do this job, but I will not serve your oligarchy. I will serve love's co-creation. And you are smart enough not to kill me, but to hire me to do this job, because you realize at a certain point, the only path you're going to have is through love's co-creation. So that's why, the trolls try to say the meanest, cruelest, dumbest stuff. And I don't really, go look at it every day. But, when I go look at my Gmail, there's 2 messages from somebody I want to hear from. There's about 80 messages from spam, and there's about 20 messages from this troll crew, right? And so I don't really read them, but when you go through the list, there's the first half of that sentence. So I get the gist of what these poor children are going through. And I really feel pity for them, right? I feel great sorrow for them. I try to empathize with what they're going through, right? So the best I can do is, I don't want to feed their angst and neuroses and psychoses. So I kind of say a little positive prayer for them, and the best one is, bless me indeed, enlarge my territory, put your hand on my shoulder and keep me from evil, so I will do no harm. And so I say that prayer for all of those trolls. And when you say enlarge my territory, the mega preachers all go on about, affluent Christianity. But no, what did Jesus talk about? He wasn't talking, oh, you're going to be a rich man if you believe in me. No, he says, give everything you got to the poor, right? So it's harder for a rich man to go to heaven than it is for a camel to go through the eye of a needle. So these prosperity chumps, they're just like the trolls who were trolling me, and I feel sorry for them too, right? And pretty much all organized religion is a troll factory, right? Because what do? They judge people who are suffering and blame them for it instead of really trying to help them, right? I've worked for a lot of churches, and back in the day, I used to write the 501c3 proposals to make churches, right? And anyway, so now it's 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 13 seconds. Look at that. And there is 5 of you and 3 thumbs up. Come on, let's get some more thumbs up. So what do you think, gang? How can that happen? This morning when I finished my morning chat, there were 6 thumbs up. And this afternoon when I went and took a look at it, there were 16 thumbs down and 2 thumbs up. I mean, how did that happen? What is going on? What does that mean? I don't care that much, but it's a quandary. And the one before that, the night before, I had about 9 thumbs up when I hung up, and there were like 2 thumbs up and 18 thumbs down. I mean, how does that happen? So, hey, buddy, good to see you, buddy. I haven't seen you in a, I hope you're well. What you been up to, buddy? I'd love to hear. Alan, this is Buddy, a really great guy. Buddy, this is Alan. Alan, Jane, Alan. Research. Buddy, research. Alan, that's research. And I love you all, guys. Right. So I used to drink a lot of coffee. Now I'm just drinking warm water with honey and lemon. Much better. Buddy, let's see. Oh, yeah, how you doing, Cadre? Well, your sensei is doing pretty good. I'm on the bop, buddy. Um, the deep green got a little too cold for me, so I'm couch surfing at the Cadres places, trying to get people inspired to get on the bus, right? Take the show on the road. It's nice to see the cadre basking in their caring about each other. Uh, Buddy, I can empathize because I'm being trolled by a crew of trolls, you know, and and I just kind of have to not embrace it, but feel empathy for the miserableness of those trolls because they're suffering way worse than I am, you know, because this channel is not my reason to live. It's just a little thing I'm doing at the moment until the universe says, okay, buddy, you're going to, here's a ticket to go hang with Sensei Al Bob, and you guys are going to take it on the road with Nikki and Alan and Jane and research, and you are going to be remembered deeper than Andy Warhol when these are that. No, I have no idea who these mongrels are. A number of people have suggested to me that it was or is um, the canary in the coal mine, but the syntax of what they're saying is not similar to. But see, my observation of the canary is that he's suffering from DID, and DID is disassociation of identity disorder, or what they used to call, multiple personalities. So the trolls may be one of, the canary's multiple personalities, right? And I've seen him upset to the point of anger. He's thrown me out of the school 36 times. Um, in the most inclement weather, in the dark of the night, in the times when, hey, can't I just stay till the morning so I can drive out of here in the sunlight? No, get out! So, and I've seen them do other amazing things, like go through my stuff that I left there and pick out really, things close, letters from my great grandfather to my great grandmother when they were starving to death in Ireland, and he kind of tried to make it into some, story, you know, that would service him, like he's somebody, you know, he would go viral with it or something. But to not be able to, respect or appreciate the thing that they were going through, and not realize, um, because the box that was given to me by a shaman, that this was a powerful shaman, element, and I left it at the school, and in the bottom of all my stuff, out in the middle of, like, 20 square yards of my stuff, and because where that was left was a very sacred place, so there were a lot of sacred artifacts in all my stuff, and I couldn't drag it all with me, so I left it there, and I left those sacred artifacts to kind of protect it. And the fact that he found it at the bottom of the, you know, and then put it on his YouTube channel, and then went on about it and said, read documents and letters that, and he gave no real, you know, appreciation of what it was. Oh, it's so special. Look at this, it's so cool. Oh, I'm like, Indiana Jones. It's like, really? And now that hurt me, but hey, that's, my great grandparents, and that was a long time ago. And you know, and they came from a place of where the old crone came from, right? And that's what I got in me. And the fact that every time I show up, even though he invites and begs me to show up, then when I get there, he goes, "Oh, you're making me so anxious." It comes from the fact that his self-loathing is so intense that when I just show up being me, you know, that's enough to like freak him out, right? Because he's been up there all by himself for the last 3.5 years. Not healthy, not good. But he does. He does. Why he is, he is the canary in the coal mine. He represents that illness that is and has been the crux of the human condition for the last 1,000,000 years. That's why he is an important character. That's why I've been very sympathetic to him, supportive of him. I really appreciate his art. No one else does, but it really does represent this toxicity of the human condition, right? And he does represent the artist in the first person, the Aboriginal savage. And again, within the construct of his multiple personalities, one of those characters is that, and he's got a character in him that's very sweet. He's got a character in him that's somewhat generous, but he is a Libra, and so Libras are great. There's a sister who is in our midst who's a Libra, and she's like, a concrete platform. She is balanced. But the canary does this. He's like a teeter totter, right? And he can be set off by nothing, right? And so he's susceptible to being affected by erroneous thoughts that come into his head. And that is coming straight off the DID of the parallel universes of demonic forces, right? Now, none of these things can affect us unless we invite it in. None of this can really affect us unless we allow it to. And that's why I constantly speak to the prayer of bless us indeed, enlarge our territories, and put your hand on our shoulders to keep us from evil so we will do no harm. Say that prayer over and over again in your first person. Bless me indeed, enlarge my territory. And when I say enlarge your territory, it's not like you're going to win the lottery. It means that you will have everything you need to serve love's co-creation, right? That you will be there to give. And if you go to my channel, buddy, go to my xratted.blogspot.com and read my newest novel, which is called Same as It Ever Was. Don't believe a word I'm saying, right? Moral majority, blah, 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 blah. It's about 180 pages. And it speaks to all of this in metaphor. I'm being the bard of metaphor, And it's right up there. You go there, and it's longer than what Blogspot has the space for, so it's up in the cloud. So you hit the link and you go there. So go there and give it a read and see what you think, right? And so, what time is it? Oh, 8:57. So, and I've been doing this now for an hour and 24 minutes. I'm going to close the door for a second because the wind is blowing So if you can hear it, can you hear it blowing? And I'll be right back. How much battery we got left? We got enough. Ay, ay, ay. Okay, I'm back. Getting cold out there. No, B, insanity is not on the increase. In a lot of ways, the world is better off than it has been in a long time. It's just the hidden hand wants everyone to go nuts because that's how they manipulate us. So they're playing everyone's fears against everything. And there's nothing to fear but fear itself, you know? It's like the story my grandma took me to see the fantastic planet, Forbidden Planet, based on the Greek tragedy and Shakespeare's um, story. And there was the monster from the id. And this movie was like the Star Wars of its time. And it was shot in you know, Panavision, 70 millimeters, and uber color, right? And and we went. My grandma and I would see a movie every Wednesday, right? We go the matinee, and we would go to the RKA theater. That was like big enough for it had like 1,200 seats, you know, and in a beautiful theater with the curtains and the statues and all the rest. And we sat in the front. There was nobody else in this whole place, and we sat in the front row. And we were looking straight up at the movie theater. And when the monster showed up, because it was a 70 millimeter, each frame of the movie was 70 millimeters, it's big enough for the artist to animate the monster on each frame that kind of etched it into the frame. And so if you were sitting in the middle or back, that monster looked real, but sitting up at the very front, looking at it, seeing gigantic, you could see the etch marks, right? So basically, our little tradition, we'd see a movie, then we go to Schrafft's and have a sundae and talk about the movie, right? And so and my neck is killing me. I go, Grandma, why'd you have me sit in the front row? And she goes, when the monster came, what'd you think? Were you scared? And I said, of course not. You could see that it was etched in the film because she had taught me enough about cinematography by the time I was like 6. I knew how films were made and all the rest, right? And so whenever they were shooting a film in New York, we would go see it because she would read, Variety. She'd read all the movie magazines, and she knew what Tab Hunter was doing. I mean, she was up on it. She loved movies, and so, you know, we would. So we talked about it. And she goes, "Well, that's what fear is. Fear is nothing to be scared of. It's just that etched on that thing." And she was always going on about Plato's cave. It's like the shadow in Plato's cave. And she goes, "All you got to do is envision that monster with red sneakers, and you will run between its legs. You will tie the sneakers together. It will run after you and fall on its face and not be able to get up." So that's why I was never really scared of anything. I got over my fears. Got over fears of my grumpy dad and my you know I don't even know the singular term I could put on my mom, but she was the scary one. Okay, scary mom. I know that they never did anything evil or violent to us, but they were, you could, be traumatized by them, but I kept seeing them as monsters scratched on the cellulose of life, and I kept tying my dad would scream at, "Go do this, go do that," and I'd say, "Yes, sir, right away, sir," and then go up to whatever the heck I wanted. And colonels never checked up on anything. They always had sergeants, but now that he was in the Air Force, he didn't have sergeants, right? So, actually, insanity is indeed increase. Yes, meth is, yes, drug. You know, if you're, I'm in this, 200-mile square thing of, Ozark poverty. And yes, I know I can totally identify with what you're talking about because oxy and meth have hit, it's basically killing. But what's killing, um, you know, us is basically corrupt, fascist, oligarchic corporate structure, right? And they're eating the public alive. I mean, generally, the overall view, things are better than they have been in a while, but um, there is, you're right, and the thing about what you're talking about, buddy, is that this is evil. You know, other kind of things you can stumble into. But I look around people who are addicted to drugs. This OxyContin, um, you know, worst drug thing going on in this country in a long time. Worse than crack, because it's coming from the corporate structure, right? It's coming from these corporations. It's not coming from the cartels in Brazil. Yeah, my grandma was a wonderful lady, you know, and I was, again, why I am the way I am is that she grabbed me when I was an infant. My parents brought me home from the hospital after dying and being born, and I was, saved by this great doctor, Dr. Teresa, who was, 1950. She pushes the doctors out of the way because she sees the utter incompetence. These guys are about to pop my head off because they're trying to pull me out with tongs, and my umbilical is wrapped around my neck, and my head was about to be popped off like a tick. And she pushed them out of the way, shoved me back in, turned me around, unwound the thing, and then delivered me, and then took me into a clean room, put me in an incubator, and put me in an IV to clean up my system. She knew exactly what to do, where these other guys were totally incompetent, and would have killed my mom, would have ripped the umbilical off her uterus, and she would have bled to death, and I would have died. And, Dr. Teresa saved me. She was my Dr. Teresa Black. She was my Dr. Black. She was my doctor until, I went off to seminary. And she was the one who hooked me up with my, because I always got sick on my birthday, always got pneumonia, always got bronchitis, strep throat, sinus infections, and because it was all about, you know, at infancy, and I died. When she took me out, I was kind of dead. If I hadn't, she kept me hooked up to the umbilical long enough for my mom's heart to get mine going again, right? And she did a whole bunch of things that these moron doctors would not have done, and then they would have blamed my mother. So um, this doctor saved me and my mom, and my grandma was right there. And if you go read my new novel, that whole relationship between Dr. Teresa and my grandma is there. So, and what made my grandma is also there, right? And these are the kind of stories that bring context to hope and context to faith's appreciation of love's co-creation. Because you don't need to believe in any, right now, buddy, along with, drug addictions, we have another addiction of these religious zealots. It's called, I've heard a number of, if you go read Chris Hedgens, he goes on about magic religions because he was ordained as a Episcopalian minister, before he became, um, you know, a world famous news reporter and a writer of books. And all of those churches that are the abundance churches, the mega churches, and those are just like meth. It's an addiction, right? People spend their last $1,000 giving the mega pastor to buy a 12-cent prayer cloth. So, but buddy, the human condition has always been very sad, you know, and but we are at this window of opportunity. We can change this. Good thoughts, good words bring good actions, bring good deeds, bring good outcomes. And that's what we have to focus on, right? And one of the things that I give thanks to for the trolls is they give me a actually a very interesting um, frame to judge myself, right? Because they keep saying the meanest, cruelest, terrible things about me. And then I look at them and go, well, okay, I'm going to look at this, about envy and greed and this and that. And, okay, I'll have to double down on my unconditional forgiveness. I'll have to double down. And when I speak of different character traits within inside individual characters, it comes from the fact that, I write novels. I mean, when I was, a scholar and I got paid to do research and write about things, I had to do it in a scholarly motif. But once I kind of got out of that, I still had access to that kind of information, and I would write about it. I like how this kind of looks like a lightning bolt over my head. Um, I kind of I started writing about it in novels because I put forth ideas about things and the scholastic world. Hey, where's your proof? You're not using MLA. You're not doing the problem, blah, blah, blah. So it's fine. I'm going to write novels, you know, and, you know, I'm going to go from there. I'm just going to write novels. I'm not going to, you know, um, make any. So and here on this channel, I tell you a lot of information, but I tell you, these are stories. I am your griot. Don't believe a word I say. I want you to go dig I'm giving you a path to follow. Go check it out. That's what the beauty of Google. You can take all the stuff I say, Google it, and it'll send you down the path. Now, the problem with Google is that it's trying to. There's a really good book that was just published about the that company that got Donald Trump elected. Something analytical, Cambridge Analytical. There's the guy who was the chief of research for him. He's wrote a book about that whole thing, and that's where um, the investigation should have gone, but they didn't even touch that, and because it connects, Facebook. Facebook took 100 million um, individuals and gave it to Cambridge Analytical, and gave them all of their data, and then the Cambridge Analytical went to those guys and fed them stuff that was on fake news, and programmed them, um, to be a tribal, and that's what you know the whole new social media platform is doing. It's just putting everyone into a loop of they're not getting the big picture. For a democracy really work, the public has to be educated. But if you're just being fed the same stuff over and over that you want to hear to prove that you're right and everybody else is wrong, what you're going to have is called a civil war, you know? But you always can be with me, Just, you want to talk, just get a hold of me at the Dude Awake 42, you know? and I'll get back to you. It might take a little time because I get so much spam and so many, I have to go through 40 people before I find somebody who I really want to talk to. So, and because of that, I don't check it every day. But, buddy, every day in every way, you're in my prayers. So all of you, right? You're all in my prayers. I love you all. I close my eyes at night and I visualize you surviving and succeeding. And we live in a world of abundance, not a world of scarcity. It is the hidden hand that puts forth the mobility or the lack of mobility through scarcity. Right? Look at me. I live on $481 a month, and I'm traveling around. I'm trying to get everyone on the bus. And buddy, I love you. You're my brother. You're my son. You know, I care deeply about you, and I send you love every day, all the time. And all of you of the cadre, you're in my heart. You know, I'm here to serve all of your needs. You know, whatever it takes to break you out of that box you're in. I'm here for you. Right? You want to ask any question, I'm here to suss it out with you. Right? To parlay. Right? And buddy, you kind of have to realize that no matter how bad it gets, it can always get worse. Number one. Number two, because this is an illusionary world, we have the opportunity to do it over and over and over again. And that's like these morons, these religious morons, born as dudes. So, well, I'm born again, so when end times are coming soon. That's why I'm all for about Israel getting an atomic bomb and killing everyone. Yay! No, sorry. And when Israel was made, it was made to be not a it was made to be a place where the Hebrew people could go and be safe. But because there were a lot of other people already there and had been there a lot longer than the Hebrews ever were, um, they made a pluralistic, non-religious country where the Lebanese and the Palestinian and everybody else could be Israeli citizens. And if all the lands that they're taking, there's still more non-Hebrew people in Israel than there are Hebrew people. And so, see, you got to realize the difference between the Hebrew people and the Zionists. You know, and the Zionists are the Aryans. The Zionists are the people the Nazis were looking for, and they found them in the not Lubavitchers, in the Anunnaki. The Anunnaki were the Khazarian um, mob, right? So go Google all of that, right? And that's the beauty of Google. It'll give you the frame where you can start digging yourself and look for the truth yourself. Don't believe me. Don't believe anybody. Believe yourself, buddy. And buddy, you need to go into your loving heart and first love yourself and then start loving everyone around you. And one on one, you make someone else happy. And by making someone else happy, you will be happy. Right? So go read my Same as It Ever Was, because there's a lot of truth in there that speaks to you, buddy. I wrote it thinking of you and how much I love you. So when you read that novel, that 188 pages, you will ring like a bell when you come across the things that speak to you that I wrote for you. And every one of you in the cadre, there is something in that novel I wrote for you. And everyone who reads it, there is something in there for you that I wrote specially for you. Oh, go read it. I love, next chat we can talk about it, and we can go paragraph by paragraph, and so it's an interesting story, and it's only a third of the novel. That first 188 pages. I didn't want to drop, 580 pages on you, so I'm doing it a little one third at a time. I mean, George Lucas didn't drop all of Star Wars on one shot. No, I had the little slivers, just like me, cuts, right? Well, and I'm here for all of the cadre. So say we all. Right? And that's why love is the only thing that truly exists. All of the self-loathing and anger and frustration are illusions, Good thoughts, good words, good actions, good deeds, good outcomes, right? It's not like rocket science. It's pretty simple. And once it's a habit, once you get into, you can, it's a lot easier than lying, cheating, stealing, being angry, being mean, being cruel. Those are really hard things, because it takes so much out of you. It destroys you. It's like drinking hydrochloric acid. So say we all. Yep. And that's our cadence call as the cadre. We resonate on a action, a thought, a deed, an outcome. So say we all. Right? And by doing that, we will live that individually, right? And so, no matter what craziness is around us, I lived in Bed-Stuy, Red Hook, Williamsburg, Brooklyn, Lower East Side, many other Needle Park, Harlem, in the 70s and 80s when it was the worst of the worst. Meaning, New York City went bankrupt, 300,000 landlords walked away from their buildings. 1.5 million apartments went feral. Whole neighborhoods of 40 to 100 blocks were redlined by banks. And that's when we walked in and took over abandoned buildings because they were owned by the city. They were no longer owned by individuals, right? We used the Homestead Act of 1876 to take the buildings over. And what we first would do is the city would cinder block the buildings, all the windows and the doors on the first floor, right? And take off the first floor of the fire escape, right? They cut it off with a torch and crash. And we would break into the back of the building where no one was watching, and we would take out where the stoop was, and the door was taken out, and they cinder blocked the door up. We would knock out cinder blocks, and we would put a fire core door, a metal buck and a metal door, and a big sturdy lock, and we would put a mail slot in it, and we would mail ourselves registered letters to that address, right? And then I would come and would put legal electricity into the buildings and put meters and risers from each meter up to each floor, not apartment. Each of us would have a whole floor, which normally was 2 to 4 apartments, and we would bring the buildings up to code. And by doing so, within a 7-year period, we would own the buildings. And New York City had an entity within the New York City Housing Authority that was started during the Depression to do the same thing. But in those 60 years between, the Great Depression, 1929, and 1985, when we started doing this, we took over, in 3 years, we took over 50 buildings, put 500 families. We only put families, not drug dealers or crackheads or whatever. I mean, at a certain point, we had to, bring everyone into the fold. There were anarchists and not the old anarchists that I knew and was schooled at in Washington Square Park playing chess with them, who would wear these rumpled uh, suits and pick up garbage and not believe in government because they would do a better job of it. So, but the anarchists of the 80s were leather jackets and just wanted to sell drugs and had a big A and wanted to throw Molotov cocktails at the police. And no, couldn't do that because the police had guns and tanks and, helicopters with bombs on them. So how we dealt with the police wasn't violently. We had the Nueva Rican Poetry Cafe, the women's brigade, come in and read poetry to the police over a year period because the police used to stalk our neighborhoods and beat us up, because nobody else was there but us. And then instead of fighting them, or rioting with them, we would read them poetry. And within a year, we read poetry. These beautiful Hispanic women read poetry to every policeman who came up to beat us up. And at a certain point within that year and a half, the New York City ran out of policemen who would beat us up because we read them. I love that poem, man. That's how you win a revolution, with poetry. You know. Good to see you back, Jane. Yep. Radical great gratitude. That's how you win a war. Not with an atomic bomb. So here we are. Oh, almost 2 hours. 1 hour, 51 minutes, and 51 seconds. And there's 4 of you here. Three thumbs up. So that's what I do this channel for, right? Now, I suggest that you guys need to, in the next week or 2 or 3, because I keep getting this thing from YouTube saying that they're changing all the protocols and I better join up now. And I don't even know what they're talking about. But I have a sense that, restriction to free speech is coming very soon. Because Obama signed into, through executive order, this National Security Act that, we, during the Civil War, Lincoln sent the army in, even up north. There were people there were people who were didn't want to kill people, didn't want to fight the Civil War. So Lincoln, sent the army in to arrest them, burn their churches to the ground, kill them. They killed a lot of people. And so after that, he passed this, after the war was over, he passed a thing, Posse Con, where the army cannot act as police. Well, Obama passed a law through executive order that allows the army to be the police. And not only that, to, suspend habeas corpus. You don't have to get Miranda. They just put a black bag over your head and take you away, never to be seen again. Very much like the death squads of, Colombia and Chile and Brazil that were all brought to South America through the Rockefellers and through a guy named James Buchanan. Go look him up. He won a Nobel Prize for economics, and his economic theory was rich people shouldn't have to pay taxes to pay for poor people's health care or their housing or highways. If you can't afford to live in America, you shouldn't be here, right? He won the Nobel Prize for that. And what Chile is going through right now is he went and rewrote their constitution when Allende was there. And they still have that same fascist constitution. And that's what, they're the most well-to-do country in South America at this moment. And even the poor people are doing better than they ever did, right? And the problem is that capitalism is failing in providing for the poor, for the average citizen, right? And that's why we have Donnie Trump, because the last 30 years of neoliberalism, a la uh, Billy Clinton and his psycho wife. Um, and then, starting with, neoliberalism started with Ronald Reagan and George H. and then George W. And well, then Billy Clinton and then George W. and Dick Cheney, who was really president. And there's a great movie out called Vice about the story of Dick Cheney. You should go watch that one. And all the movies that are made to give, it's a shamanic tool to possess the will of the public. You tell them what's going to happen in a movie, they go and watch it, it goes into their cerebral cortex, and they are incapable of not going along with it. And the Nazis used the first to use film as the big lie, and and Donnie is right in there with Adolf, and people have to realize that Adolf Hitler and Donald Trump are just tools, right? They're being used as poster children, They're being, because they make no sense. You listen to what they say, especially Adolf Hitler. I mean, he couldn't even string a sentence together. And Donnie, instead of Nuremberg, Donnie's got, his tweets, And, whoops, there goes my phone. And the phone is, was invented in the smartphone was developed in, early 1954. The guy who wrote 2001, what's his name? He, was a scientist, right? And he used to write scholarly things. He's just like me, he wrote scholarly things. No one ever read them. He started writing science fiction books. And so he basically, I remember seeing a film of him at the UNIVAC facility, which was like, 180,000 square feet of computer, and it had a tenth of what my laptop here has, right? And he picked up a pack of cigarettes. He goes, in the near future, everyone will have a device about this big, and this device will be your phone, it will be your movie theater, it will be your office. You will do everything on it, and it will be surveillance capitalism. And that's where we are today, right? And, we are capitalist. It'd be fine if we had real capitalism, but we don't, because, we have oligarch fascist capitalism, right? And what that is violent capitalism, surveillance capitalism. Orwell wrote 1984 for a reason, because that's what he wanted to see. He came from the oligarchy himself. He wasn't some man of the people, writing a story about rebel against this. No, that's what he wanted to see, you know? Uh, let's see. Very late here. I'll wish you all the best and thankful good night. Okay. Sweet dreams, sweet dreams, you all. Your griot calls and tells you to sleep, be sleep of dreamy dream time. May it ease your heart and soul, so you can freely choose to ascend to love's co creation, where we all can be as one, and all our relations will be as one. So say we all, so say we all, so say we all. Yep. So at 2 hours and 22 minutes and 22 seconds, I will say arrivederci until I speak to you tomorrow. And as long as I've got, I'm in a Wi-Fi environment, I will keep up uh, laying these down, because when I'm on the bop, like I for about 4 days, I didn't have anything didn't have a vehicle to get you. So now I do. So now I will. And okay, 2 hours and 2 minutes and 22 seconds. I will say, sweet dreams, my friends. And I will say again, I will leave you with a prayer. Bless me indeed. Bless us indeed. Enlarge my territory. Enlarge our territory. And every day and every way, put your hand on our shoulder and keep us from evil so we will not do harm. And good thoughts bring good words, which bring good actions, which bring good deeds, which bring good outcomes. So say we all. I love you all. I bless you all. Have good dreams. Have a good day. At ease. And, buddy, anytime you want to get a hold of me, we can talk on the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail. Okay? And tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. The window of opportunity. We got 13 months. So let's get the bus on the road everywhere you are. You don't. We all don't have to come to one place, but where you are, bring the cadre to the people around you. Make a coffee house. Have a book club. You know, all of you guys need to start taking these shows and putting them, on thumb drives. Dragon, put at least 3 months on thumb drives, and somehow they went missing from my room at the school, and the only other person in the school was the canary in the coal mine. That guy has more money for everything. He kept going into my room and said, "This is mine." He said, "This is mine. I had that." He kept taking stuff out of there, and I used to put little slips of paper. So I don't go to your room, and the little slip would be on the floor, but the door would be closed. Again, this all comes from self-loathing. We do not need to loathe. We need to love ourselves, right? So anyway, copy all these shows down so they will at least be saved for posterity and won't just disappear into the clink of the can of YouTube, because they're about to do an end run around free speech, that's for sure. And a woman, an English child of King Edward, who had to abdicate because he married a commoner woman, and this girl was his daughter, and she was brought up in Canada and then America, and she was quite the whiz at history, and she told really good stories about her scene, and then one day her channel just disappeared. Her name wasn't even. You went to her site, and it just said, obliterated. So that's why I'm your basic griot. I'm just telling you a story. Don't believe anything I say. Anyway, so here we're getting close to the moment, and so I'll see you tomorrow. I love you all. Remember, come visit at Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, and we can talk privately about anything you want to. Okay? Okay. So I'll catch you guys a little later. Where's that cursor? There's that cursor.